Derby County looks set to announce John Eustace as their new manager over the course of the next 24 to 48 hours after Blackburn Rovers confirm that John Eustace has requested permission to speak with another Championship club following the activation of a clause in his contract. Now, Derby County are looking for a new manager after the sacking of Paul Warne, which occurred on Friday afternoon before Derby County headed to face Norwich City. Derby County picked up their first point since December 26th in that game at Carrow Road, with Matt Hamshaw, Jake Buxton, Bradley Johnson and Andy Warrington taking the helm for that game, Jerry Yates scoring a late penalty. Now, if we just look at the statement from Blackburn Rovers, it is one which is sort of massive in terms of sort of the way that they're looking at this. They're sort of turning it all on him. Now, this is what they have to say. Blackburn Rovers can confirm that head coach John Eustace has requested permission to speak with another Championship club following the activation of a clause in his contract. The club is extremely disappointed by John Eustace's request to hold discussions with another club at such a crucial stage in the season, but this has now been reluctantly granted. With significant investment being made during the January transfer window, 6 new additions, several of whom impressed during yesterday's FA Cup tie against Wolves, the board and ownership feel the club are in a good position to challenge for one of the playoff places this season. With the squad bolstered, key players returning from injury, and the Rovers currently in a strong position in the Championship, the club and players remain focused on achieving the best possible outcome this season. Now, for me, a lot of Blackburn Rovers fans don't believe he's been backed. Many Blackburn Rovers fans don't believe he's been backed at all. I think they've bought in something like £40 million over the course of the last few years in transfer windows, and they've not spent a great deal at all. Now, there's a lot of talk about the Blackburn Rovers owners, and it is disappointing what has been said about John Eustace over the course of the last few days and things like that. But it's one of those for me where I personally believe that if John Eustace has sort of made that call on whether he feels backed or not, then that's up to him. That's his decision, and he can only know what he was promised or what he was expecting from the board going into this window. Now, if we look through another article which was released, I'm going to put a screenshot up on screen now. The LT can reveal that Eustace asked Blackburn Rovers for a new contract and assurances over investment in the squad to continue their push at the top end of the Championship table. However, Rovers refused to extend his deal and provide those guarantees. I think that speaks volumes, in my opinion, to what Derby County are potentially offering John Eustace. If he wasn't given those assurances, then you can't expect him to want to stick with the club. You can't expect him to want to move forward and feel as if the club is backing him when he's asking for those basic things and they're not giving them to him. Now, a lot of people have been talking about John Eustace and how he may potentially play with Derby County, and it's certainly one which we have spoken about over the course of the last few days. Now, a lot of people have been talking about John Eustace playing in a 5. Now, from what I can see and what I've seen, he's predominantly played with a 4-2-3-1 with that sort of double pivot, and I think Derby County have sort of the perfect midfield balance to be able to have a solid 4-2-3-1 setup. You look at a sitting midfielder, David Ozo, can collect the ball, can dictate the game. If, in my opinion, if you ask me, I think he did that early on in the season with the possession that we had. If you look at the Bristol City game, for example, he was sort of a key figure in that counter-attacking display. You look at then obviously Ibu Adams, your protector, and that perfectly fits in with what John Eustace wants to do. David Ozo in that sitting role with Adams next to him, or Adams just ahead, with Kenzo Holdmine as the other player. I think Derby County are in an excellent position to be able to do that. Now, for me, the big question is going to be how are we going to sort out this team in regards to that forward line? Obviously, we've lost Corey Blackett-Taylor to injury. Tom Barkhazen isn't really fancied. Caden Jackson is a bit 50-50 on performance, as well as Marcus Harness. There's some big things and big decisions which John Eustace will have to make. Obviously, we spoke yesterday morning about, obviously, the potential conversation about who's going to take the game tonight, and obviously that is going to be Matt Hamshaw. I can't see any way, even if he's announced in the next hour or whatever, I can't see any way that Eustace would take the game. And it's one of those for me where it is a really important game for Derby County. A big one against Oxford United at home versus former Derby County manager Gary Rowett. And Derby County have to pick up realistically, we need 3 points. That is what we need. A point will do if we can then build on it with John Eustace coming in. But it's a massive, massive discussion which is going on among the fan base and among everything at the moment. And it is going to be interesting to see. A lot of Blackburn Rovers fans were very, very sort of angry and disappointed at him stepping away. But for me, I think that speaks volumes on the quality manager that we are bringing in at Derby County, and that's something which we have to be aware of. I think John Eustace is going to be an excellent, excellent manager, and I think he's already shown some of his best possible traits already. And I think if we hadn't already had sort of those conversations behind the scenes with John Eustace, I don't think we ever would have made the approach to bring him in. And it's a massive moment for Derby, one which, for me, could be the difference between staying up and going down. Now, I've just found the tweet about Blackburn Rovers over the last couple of seasons. They've brought in 9 million for Sammy Schmodix, 22 million for Adam Wharton, 15 million for Adam Armstrong, and their record signings are 7 million for Brereton Diaz, 5 million for Sam Gallagher, and 1.5 million for Adam Armstrong. I'll make sure to put that on the screen. It is sort of, you can understand why Eustace doesn't think that he's being backed. Now, obviously, if we look at the situation that Blackburn are in those playoff positions, you can understand why people are so angry with him moving away and going to a team in that sort of drop zone like we are. But it's one of those for me where I think it speaks volumes to the desire and the ambition that Derby County have at the club, whether that be with David Clowes or with future ownership. And for me, it's one of those situations where I think the compensation is pocket change. I think it's about £500,000 to about £750,000, which I think is absolutely tiny when you think we paid over £1 million for Paul Warne to come in when we was in League One. And for me, it's brilliant for Derby County to spend that tiny fee to bring in such an excellent manager who has done the exact same thing with Blackburn Rovers as we anticipated. And, well, what we anticipate could happen with us. He got them out of the relegation scrap and stayed up. I think it was by a point in the end. You've then got that situation that he's got to do with us. He's got them right up there within the playoff places. And could he do that with us next season? That's a big question, which no one really will know the answer to until next season. Now, obviously, a lot of people say, well, he did try to get a new contract at Blackburn, and he wanted investment at Blackburn. And great point. I don't think that was anything more than him trying to make a point and make a stand on his way out. If you give me this, I'll stay. And most managers would do that. I personally didn't see any chance that Eustace would have even come to Derby given the situation. But if they've broke down that relationship at board level, then ultimately that is what shuts the door. Like, in my opinion, we were sort of like David Clowes and the board at Derby were forced into letting go of Paul Warne because he lost the relationship with the fans. Whereas at Blackburn, they forced Eustace out by losing that relationship with the board. And that's sort of a big question which has to be answered for those Blackburn Rovers fans. Now, it's one of those situations where Derby County are a massive club. I think we're averaging 29,000 at home across the course of this season. In both seasons in League One, we averaged 27,000. I don't know the last time that Blackburn averaged 26,000 at minimum, and they've got a similar size stadium to us, I believe, with about 35,000 attendance. And it's one of those, for me, it's a massive situation. Great academy coming up at Derby County. Got some great players already in the squad, in my opinion, that just need the best put out of them and a renewal of confidence, and we will see that over the course of the next few months. It's a massive deal for Derby County, and John Eustace looks set to take the helm of Derby County heading into that game versus Queen's Park Rangers at the weekend. Let me know your thoughts down below. There's obviously the Oxford United game later on today. Let me know your score predictions and team predictions down below. It's going to be interesting to see what does happen. If you have not done so already, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell